Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fair campus, especially for those of you who may be visiting for the first time. I'm Manzoor Rahman. I'm the Associate Dean of our graduate programs. In a moment, I'm going to hand it over to experts who know what they're talking about. But one of the things we wanted to point out, I think almost all of us here have done graduate studies and definitely understand the value of graduate education. And because of that, we firsthand have experience with how to go about financing that investment. And about two and a half years ago, we started talking about, hey, you know, the things that we went through when we were going through graduate education, if we had known before we started, we learned a lot as we were doing it about how to finance it. If we had known what we know now from before we had started that, that would have been really helpful. And we talked around among our colleagues and said, wait, we could help people out, people who are thinking about graduate education, and if they can have a wider sense of that information before, it would be a great, hopefully, valuable service to them. And we said, let's do that. Let's do that. So this is the third year we're doing the Financing Your Graduate Education presentation and discussion. And we have lots of wonderful colleagues here that can help you more details with that. But before I turn it over to our panelists, I just want to go and make sure, many of you have probably had a chance to meet with them, but make sure I introduce some of the colleagues that are here representing the different graduate degree programs we have. So I'll start right here. Lauren Lukens, she's the director of our Masters of Science in Supply Chain Management. Right next to them, we have Ashley Adams and Dr. Inez Kraft, who are representing our Master of Science in Real Estate. Right next over there, we have Kate Mickle. She's representing our MBA programs, both the full-time and the evening. Over there, we have Scott Hanley, representing our Master of Science in Global Leadership. And last but not least, actually, they're both sides, representing, we have a Master of Science in Executive Leadership, as well as a new custom corporate MBA. And Chris Devaka is the director, and Bridget Breitenberg also works with that program, so they're representing those two programs as well. So feel free, get a moment to ask all your questions perfectly answered. But to do that, I'll get the help of Lori Sanderson, who's the academic advisor for the MBA programs as well. Lori?
Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us again tonight. I think I know or have gotten to meet most of you, but as Dr. Rahman said, I work for the MBA Programs Office as an academic advisor and an admissions advisor as well. I also have my MBA, and I remember very well what it was like, you know, when you're thinking about applying, when you're in the process of applying, you're weighing some different options, and you're really just trying to figure out what's right for you, but more than that, what's available and where the best, you know, total package is, because that's usually what it looks like, is some sort of a combination of a couple of different things. I will be moderating the panel tonight, and I'm very pleased to introduce the rest of our panelists. Mary Jane Town Denton is our financial aid counselor and loan coordinator, who's going to walk you through the process from, again, that time you just start thinking about maybe looking at some graduate degrees, all the way up until you join a program and start taking that first class. After that, Paul Pentek, who is a first-year student in our international MBA program, is going to tell you a little bit about his experience. He is also a former U.S. Marine, so Paul is going to tell you a little bit about some of the military-specific options, or just at least how he's used some of those options, as well as how those go hand in hand with some of the financial aid programs here. And then at the end of the table, we have Sean Giffen. Sean graduated in 2011 from our Master of Science in Real Estate program, and Sean is going to tell you his story with the financial aid and scholarship process as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Mary Jane. And Mary Jane, if you just want to give us a quick overview of everything, and I know you have some handouts as well, and if you can think of any specific documents, important deadlines, things like that to include, I'm sure that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Lori. I have these packets over on our table. It's in the middle table over here. Included in the packets that I brought tonight, it's all geared towards graduate students here at USD and applying. We have a checklist to keep you on track on what you need to do, what the time frames that you need to do it and apply. We have the FAFSA on the web. That's the key tool that you have to complete. it's easier for you to sit down and do this worksheet. It's a FAFSA on the Web worksheet with your 2013 taxes, and then go on the web and apply on the FAFSA on the Web website. It's much easier when you've completed this to go out and do that. And then also in the packet, we also have put together a guide to applying for USD graduate students and it has a lot of good information about our processes, our deadlines, and so forth. But I'm going to cover some of that tonight. First of all, the first thing that you need to remember to do if you haven't ever applied for financial aid is apply for your PIN number, a FAFSA PIN number. And you apply on the www.pin.ed.gov website. Now, if you had a financial aid as an undergrad and you had to file the FAFSA, you probably already have a PIN number. It's one and the same, and you can still go out if you don't remember it and request them to resend it to you. The other thing, as I indicated, is to complete the worksheet, because it's much easier to have this completed and then sit down and walk through the process on the web. The last thing that you need to do once you filed it on the web is to be aware of our priority deadline. For graduate students at USD, we require that you've completed the FAFSA and submitted it to USD by selecting our school code, which is 010395000. But that information is in this form, so don't worry about that. But the priority deadline is April 1st, 2014, for the fall 2014 and 15 school year. So that gives you top consideration for all forms of financial aid, including our USD gift assistance. So you don't want to miss that deadline. And we strongly recommend our students to apply, even if you haven't been admitted to a program or you're not sure which program you're going to apply for, because if you've applied and met the deadline and then are admitted later, we can still consider you as on time and meeting that priority deadline. Okay. Once you're admitted, you want to follow, you're given a USD email, and you're going to want to be checking your USD email for any kind of messages from our office, and you'll be given access and information on the My San Diego portal. And that's where your award, your financial aid award will be, and that's also where we'll go out and request additional documents if you are selected for verification. So you always need to be checking the portal for any kind of updates, any messages, and any additional forms that we may be requesting. When I say additional forms, it can be because you're selected for verification, and verification is the process of verifying the information you listed on the FAFSA with the accuracy of your tax information. And I don't know if any of you have applied as an undergrad, but in the past you were able to submit paper tax returns. No longer can you submit paper tax returns. The federal student aid requires that you either submit an IRS tax return transcript, or you now have a tool when you file the FAFSA. If you filed your taxes, you can use the IRS data retrieval tool. And it's at the point when you're applying and it's asking for tax information, it'll ask, if you've already done your taxes and they've already been processed, then it'll ask if you want to use the data retrieval tool, and you say yes. It'll link you right from the FAFSA to an IRS website. And you can go through the process on the IRS website, and they actually electronically transmit the information back to your FAFSA, and then you go back to your FAFSA and finish the corrections and updating the information. So they're bringing the actual tax data that we need in electronically, because those two federal agencies are now talking. The tax return transcript can now be requested from the IRS website at www.irs.gov. And it says, give me a transcript or something. You can go in if your taxes have already been processed, and if you got a refund, you'll know that it's already been processed. Then they can do it electronically. And now for this year, just this year, starting in the last 2 weeks, we were notified that you can now download and print the tax return transcript. In the past, you had to ask for it and wait so many weeks to get it. But that's kind of the process as far as if you're selected for verification, it's the tax information. There'll be some forms that we put out on the portal, an independent verification worksheet, and a student income certification worksheet. They're in a PDF format. You'd open them up, draw them down, print them out, complete them, and turn them into our office. Some of the funding that we have available for our graduate students who meet the priority deadline is we do have some limited funds under the Federal Perkins Loan Program. We also have the USD Grad Grant, and those are coveted because of grant money you don't have to repay. And we also have federal work-study programs, but I believe most of you are probably working full-time, so that may not really be applicable. Also, we have the federal loan programs. The federal unsubsidized Stafford, you are eligible for a maximum of $20,500 under that program, and the federal direct Grad Plus program, and that's a credit-based loan program, and you have to allow them to check your credit, and it's something that's done automatically when you apply on studentloans.gov. There's additional funding, too, for graduate students, such as the Grad Merit Scholarships that are offered through the Dean's office, and you'd have to apply and find out what your criteria is. There's also VA, and I know that Paul's going to talk a little bit more about VA, but we are a VA-approved institution, and students can receive VA benefits. We participate in the 9/11 and the Yellow Ribbon matching programs. And we have a large number of military students now drawing benefits under a lot of these programs. There's also departmental scholarships, so you would need to check with your individual graduate program to see what funds they have available and apply and meet the deadline, whatever application process they have. We also have outside scholarships, and USD for the last 25 years has maintained a database, and it's on our website at www.sandiego.edu/financial aid, and we have a tab at the top that says a lot of different things, but one of them is scholarships. And on the scholarships page, there's a listing of outside scholarships, and we've maintained this database. We update it annually, and you can click on it, and by month of the deadline date, there's listings of scholarships. We either have the name of the agency that you can apply to and a direct link to their website, or other contact information, but it's really up to you to apply. You know, we don't do that for you, so you just have to be aware of it and apply. Now, there can be a variety of things, and many of them may not be applicable, but there's a lot of good information out there. The other thing that I was going to talk about briefly was the company tuition assistance. Most of you may be working, and your employer may consider or be willing to help cover some of the costs. So that's something that you might want to see if you have it as a benefit from your employer, is tuition assistance through your employer. Lastly, we have private loans. If you decide that you want to go with some of the private loans, sometimes the interest rates are a little better, and you might want to be able to pay it off earlier if you can. More recently, they are credit-based, but more recently I was notified by one of the lenders that it's Discover Student Loans, that if you are applying for their graduate MBA loan and your credit approved and you've taken the GMAT, which I believe most of your programs require the GMAT, they have an automatic 0.25% interest rate reduction on the loans. And then if you do auto debit and repayment, you can get another 0.25% interest rate reduction. So there's a lot more alternative or private loan programs out there that are starting to gear towards the graduate programs. Just general information, you can contact the One Stop Student Center. They're kind of the front end. They can answer general questions. They're available in the University Center, room 126, and they're available Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 9 to 5, and Wednesday until 6. Also, they respond to emails at onestop@sandiego.edu, and the Office of Financial Aid, which I'm out of, is in the Hughes Administration Building, 3rd floor, room 319, and we're available 9 to 4 every day, and calls we take till 5 o'clock every day. So if you have any questions, you can also email us there. But you should check out our website, which is as I mentioned earlier, the sandiego.edu/financial aid, because there's a lot of wealth of information out there on all sorts of programs, the scholarships, the grants, the loans, etc. Feel free to stop by my table, pick up materials. I'm here however long they want me, and I can answer a lot of questions because I've been around in this field for a long time. Thank you.
It looks like you brought a lot of great materials. Thanks, Mary Jane. I also just want to make a point that some of the different options that Mary Jane was talking about are on this handout, the financial support options. Hopefully all of you got that when you came in, but if you didn't and you'd like a copy, if you could just let someone know in the back of the room, if there's anyone who did not get a copy, we will all be referencing some of these different options. Now, before we move on to Paul, I know that there's at least a few of you in here tonight who are planning on using the military VA benefits. You may all know that the post-9/11 GI benefit covers just over around $19,200. USD is also a yellow ribbon participating school. What that means is for those of you who are retired, who are out of the service now, you not only get that $19,000, you get an additional about $7,000 both from USD and the VA for a total annual contribution of just over $33,000. There is a housing allowance, and that is approximately what you would get for an E5 with dependents, for those of you that know a little bit about that world. Housing is only offered for full-time students. That doesn't mean that you need to be in a program that is only full-time. What that means here at USD is that you need to be taking 9 or more units, which is considered a full-time course load. Many of our evening students in the MBA programs are considered full-time, even though they come to an evening program, and I know that that's the case in other programs as well. And I am going to let Paul talk about his experience using not only some of these VA funds, but also some of the other options as well. Paul?
Thanks, Lori, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. So I'm going to talk to you briefly about my experience using the GI Bill, the post 9/11 GI Bill, and then associated with that, the Yellow Ribbon program that ties in. I'll talk to you a little bit about my graduate assistantship, which I have through the department, it's a departmental scholarship through the School of Business, and as well as a merit-based scholarship. So I'll cover those 3 items. So to start, the post 9/11 GI Bill process was actually very painless. I know Veterans Administration can be a little bit scary and seem very cumbersome from the outside for a lot of the processes they have. But as far as the post 9/11 GI Bill goes, it's been very smooth and painless for me. And then the school here, USD's coordinator, has been very instrumental in making that process smooth and understandable for me. So for me, it was it started when I applied for the 9/11 GI Bill early last summer. Sorry, I should back up. I'm a first-year IMBA, so I applied for the scholarship or the 9/11 GI Bill. I applied for that about early to mid-summer. It was done online. After I completed my online application, which was pretty simple and easy to follow, I then called the school and set up an appointment with the VA coordinator here, and he was welcoming and easy to work with. I was expecting, a whole slew of paperwork and a bunch of trouble, but it was actually really simple. So it was just a matter of him receiving the paperwork from the VA. So once he received the paperwork from the VA, the 2 of them coordinated, and it was pretty much transparent to me. And he reassured me that he had the necessary information. I didn't need to provide anything beyond my discharge paperwork and the VA paperwork, which I had filled out online. And this was all done before the semester started. So once the semester started, that process was complete, and I was able to enroll, or I was already enrolled in classes, so I was able to begin classes knowing, being very confident that the GI Bill was going to cover all my bills. So it was a simple process. And if anybody has questions about that or any more of the details, please feel free to ask. But in general, it was a simple process. It was just online, a quick meeting with the coordinator here, and then just double checking the status of the GI Bill through the VA's online site and also through just by emailing the coordinator. So very simple process. It's been outstanding. It's covered all my bills, and I haven't had to really worry about my tuition. So I'm a big advocate of that. If you have that at your disposal, you definitely want to take advantage of it. And since I am full-time, I also get the housing allowance, which is helpful because since I'm full-time, I'm not able to work, so that covers housing for me. Then moving on to the graduate assistantship, that's been not only a great learning experience for me, but has also helped with tuition and give me some more flexibility with my while I'm going to school. So it's been a great learning experience. I spent last semester with the admissions office, so I got to learn from them, but it also gave me an opportunity for some extra funding. So that process was also pretty simple. That was just coordinating directly with the MBA's administrative office, filling out some very basic paperwork, and you basically have a wish list of professors or departments that you'd like to work with, and they do their best to match you up with a good fit. So that was beneficial for me, like I said, because I enjoyed it. It was a good learning experience, and got to help contribute a little bit to the school as well. And then they give you, a very generous, amount towards your tuition for that as well. And then finally, the merit-based scholarship. So this is something I took advantage of during the intersession. So we just finished our fall session in December. We're currently in our spring session. So in between is our intersession, and with the International MBA program, we travel during that period to take coursework and also do a project overseas through the business school. So during that period, there's a lot of travel expenses, lodging expenses, everything that you would associate with overseas travel, and in addition to taking your coursework overseas. So the Aller Center here was, again, they also offer a merit-based scholarship, and it was a really smooth process. It was part of the application to the intersession program. So that was done in coordination with the business school and the Aller Center here. A simple matter of filling out some paperwork, writing some essays, and basically telling your story of why you're one of the best options, or a good option for the scholarship. So got a very generous scholarship from them as well, which definitely helped cover the pretty expensive travel, because I was down in Argentina and Brazil. So you can imagine the flights are not cheap, and the lodging gets expensive when you're there for a number of weeks. So so basically the point is, I have a lot of tools available to me to help offset some of the costs, and highly recommend you take advantage of them, because they're easy to use. People are very knowledgeable who are in the departments, and they can help steer you in the right direction and find the best option for you. So if anybody has questions about GI Bill, graduate assistantship, or merit-based scholarship, I'll be here this evening if you want to ask me further details. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And again, Paul is fairly typical of most of our students in that he's used a mix of these different streams of funding. And one thing that I did want to say is, while Paul mentioned that he was a graduate assistant in the MBA office, he didn't tell you what a rock star he was. We were really lucky to have him, and he's done a lot to help us in our office, and we're very appreciative. And thanks for coming out tonight, Paul. I also wanted to mention, when he started talking about the VA paperwork, the very first step for any of you who are interested in using your military benefits is to get your certificate of eligibility from the VA. That's the piece of paper, it's the one piece of paper that we need here at the university to not only certify you for benefits, but also to certify what level, to just get you started. Once you have that in hand, the process is very, very smooth. And again, USD has a long history of being very friendly to the military, working very, very much hand in hand with our military students. And thank you very much for that, Paul. I'm now going to move on to Sean Giffen. Sean, can you tell us a little bit about your experience here?
Yeah, I sure can. Thank you, Lori. Welcome, everybody. I hope you all are considering USD for your master's studies and in your career and what you guys are looking to do. What I'd like to do is explain, my experience with applying through financial aid, and kind of the financial aid awarding process, and the process that I went through as far as once I applied for the financial aid, obviously then being awarded the financial aid that I was going to use throughout my program, and then finally closing out the financial aid and the program that I use. So I graduated through the MSRE program here at USD. It's a Master's in Real Estate program in 2011. I can't believe it's already been 2.5 years since I graduated. But fantastic experience. I went through the program as a part-time employee, or as a part-time student. I worked full-time. And so in order to make all of that happen, I obviously had to apply and use financial aid. Luckily, I went through the financial aid process as an undergraduate, so going through the process as a graduate, filling out the FAFSA, obtaining my PIN, as Lori mentioned earlier, that's something that came back to memory very quickly. So, the first step that I took was, I sat down, completed the FAFSA information, and applied for, as much financial aid as I could qualify for. And my plan that I was approaching was that, because I was working full time, I was able to cover all of my expenses, and then the financial aid money that I was applying for would cover all of my tuition costs or any additional books or computer, anything that was related to my program. I was planning to use my financial aid money towards those expenses. So that was the plan. I applied for the financial aid, and what I'm sure probably all of you will experience if you go through the financial aid is they'll typically award you more than what you need. And so I tried to be as disciplined as I could to not take everything that was awarded to me, because that can be appealing. And what I did is, after I was awarded the financial aid, as Mary Jane mentioned, I seeked out the financial aid office, and they put me in touch with the One Stop Student Center. And I was able to make a really great relationship with one of the counselors in the One Stop Student Center. And I sat down with her, and I kind of talked to her about how I wanted to go through with not only receiving the awards for the financial aid, but how I wanted to accept them and at what level, so that I was keeping to my budget as to how much money and how much financial aid I wanted to take out, because I knew I'd be repaying that back after I graduated. So if I could give you guys any one piece of advice, that would be my recommendation. I would really seek out the help and the aid, as Paul mentioned, to the center, Financial Aid Center or the One Stop Student Center. They're fantastic. They're very helpful. And what I did is, the way that the awards came through to me was that it happened every year, at the beginning of every academic year. And because I was a part-time student, it was a 2-year program for me. So at the beginning of the first year, when I was given my award, I sat down with the One Stop Student Center. I talked to them about what my anticipated costs were for tuition. You know, I needed to buy a laptop computer to attend my classes. I needed to purchase my books for all of my coursework. And so I was able to kind of budget out what I needed from that standard. And then as the next year, or for my program, the next semester rolled through, I made another appointment with the One Stop Student Center. I insisted that I speak to the same gal that I worked with initially, and you know, kind of work through a budget for the second semester and the second year of my coursework. So. And what I was able to do is that, obviously, my costs in the first year and the first semester of my program, it was a lot more, but it was a little bit more expensive for me to kind of get going and acquire the things I need to get going for the program. So when I sat down for the second year, I just knew that I needed to take out, you know, costs for my tuition and for my books, and I was able to take out less money, again, than I was awarded, even compared to my first semester. So that was very helpful. And then after I graduated and I'd finished out, you know, I'd closed out all of my student loans, I sat down with them, and I just made sure, I sat down again with the One Stop Student Center, and I made sure that everything was closed out properly. I had an idea of, you know, what I had taken out for the entire course of my program over the 2 years. And sure enough, you know, December following my program, the invoices for my student loans started coming through. So, but it worked out really well. And it was really at the help of the university and the One Stop Student Center that made the process for me very easy. And I think that's about it. I think that's it, Lori.
All right, great. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to take a couple of questions from the panel, but before we do that, I just want to go back over our brief handout that we have for you. We've talked about a lot of these options, and one of the great things that I love so much about being a part of the USD community is our students and our alums and all of our colleagues know so much about all of these. So they are a great resource, as well as the 4 of us up here. I really encourage you, after we're done with our panel discussion, to, you know, think about some of the specific options that you're looking at, talk to the specific program representatives that, you know, you're considering, and find out exactly how, you know, XYZ, this or that piece of funding works with this or that program, because there are some differences. So go out there and ask a lot of questions, and we can start right now.
You know, Laura, just before we turn it over to questions, you know, one thing you asked me to talk about too was not only the financial aid, but scholarship opportunities. Scholarship opportunities for all of the graduate students, at least through our program, through the MSRE program. Every semester, there was an opportunity for scholarship award opportunities, and those were opportunities I took advantage of and was lucky for the 4 semesters that I was there. I was able and was awarded scholarship money each semester. So that obviously helps with offsetting your tuition costs and my financial aid costs. And so I would highly recommend, there's a really great handout that was provided here that breaks down, depending upon which program you're looking at, what various scholarship opportunities are here for all the students. And so, you know, the scholarships that we saw through our program, I mean, they range from $1,000 to $6,000 depending upon the semester. So those could be tremendous helps, and it was great. You could apply to all of them, and you know, you could be awarded multiple scholarships per a semester. So I would strongly recommend exploring scholarship opportunities, obviously, throughout your individual program.
That's a great point. Thanks so much. And just to kind of recap again, most of the scholarships are either offered through the specific programs, and then there are some that are offered to our students from outside sources. So we've got the overall federal financial aid process. Then we have, for those who it applies to, we have the military benefits, and we also have graduate assistantships that are available through the programs, as well as program-specific scholarships. So any questions from any of you about any of these pieces? Yes?
I'm just curious, Sean, what are some of the criteria you use in doing the scholarship awards? I mean, obviously, once you get into a program, they might be able to evaluate you, but going in, I mean, is it just, you know, is it gender, is it race, is it you know, academia, your undergrad? I mean, what are some of the considerations for scholarships?
Yeah, I mean, the programs, all the scholarships that we applied through our program, you know, it was based on your experience, your background, your financial need. I mean, that was really one of I'd say the majority of our scholarships that came through the Masters in Real Estate program.
And some of those, again, are going to vary between the different programs. So you might have, you know, some different criteria in the real estate program versus the MBA program versus some of the others. So great opportunity here tonight to talk to the specific programs you're looking at. Other questions? Yes?
How is the FAFSA process for graduate school different from undergraduate?
That is a great question. That's probably one of the questions we get the most in the admissions office about the financial aid process. So Mary Jane, I'm gonna let you take that question. And the question was, how does applying for financial aid differ as a graduate student from an undergrad?
Basically, the main difference is that as a graduate student, you're automatically considered independent, and most of you are all over the age of 24 anyway. So it's only going to be your information, your tax information, your asset information. If you're married, or I believe next year they're also getting into domestic partners. It may be, if you have that type of a situation, it would be both combined information. But basically, the form and the information that they're asking is just the students and or spouse or domestic partner. It's not parents' information. And as I indicated earlier, even if you don't meet the priority deadline and you decide to apply later, you still fill it out. We still can consider you for all sorts of financial aid. But it's tax information and your assets from the prior year. And so for the 14-15 year, it'd be the tax. This is for the 2013 that we're just getting our W-2s and people are starting to file their taxes. I forgot to mention that you do apply for financial aid every year, as Sean had mentioned. It's for the fiscal year, it runs July 1 of one year through June 30th of the next year, and that's what the FAFSA is tied to. So if your program is going to be 2 years or 2.5 years in length, you would be applying at least twice, maybe even more if you go part-time. I don't know how long they'll allow you to go part-time. The only other thing that I forgot to mention is that USD, as a financial aid professional, we are required, all schools nationwide are required to create budgets based on our costs at our institution. And our budgets include these elements: their tuition and fees, books and supplies, room and board, personal miscellaneous, and transportation. Now, USD, for graduate students, you're billed on a per unit basis, and all your programs have different tuition rates. So we work with the graduate programs and we know what they are. But it's also very important that if you change your units every semester, you need to notify us because you're awarded based on your actual tuition charges. But because the elements of the room and board are in there and personal miscellaneous, and you're maybe working full-time and all you care about is covering your actual educational expenses, as Sean said, he didn't need to take as much out. He was offered way more. He chose to keep his debt load down or keep and only take what he needed, that's a good plan. If you don't need to take and to borrow or to take all the forms of financial assistance, you can always decline them. If you don't know, you can accept them and then you can decline them later. If you get more money in a refund and you decide in a loan, return it to my loan program, I'm the loan coordinator, my team, we get the money back, we return it to the lender, and if we return the funds versus you sending it back to the Department of Education, it's considered a parcel cancellation and the fees are added back on if we return it. If you return it, it's a payment on your account. And you don't get the benefit of having the fees that are taken off the top of the loans paid back. Again, as Sean said, borrow what you only need. And if you're covering your living expenses and things like that, you take out what you need and try to keep your debt load down. Any other kinds of questions?
Okay, if there's nothing else for the panel, we're going to adjourn and let you ask questions from the different programs. Thanks again for coming tonight.